Close your eyes for a moment. Imagine you're alone in the woods. The sun is setting. The temperature is dropping. And you've just found something that shouldn't be there. Number 5. The Doll Forest of Chihuahua, Mexico. In 2019, a group of hikers exploring a remote section of forest in Chihuahua, Mexico made a discovery that still haunts them to this day. Deep in the woods, miles from any trail or road, they found hundreds of dolls hanging from trees. Not just a few dolls, hundreds, maybe thousands. They were everywhere, tied to branches with wire, nailed to trunks, suspended by rope. Baby dolls, porcelain dolls, dolls with missing eyes, dolls with cracked faces. Some were decades old, weathered and decayed. Others looked almost new. The hikers documented everything with their phones. In the footage, you can hear their voices getting more and more panicked as they realize the scale of what they've found. The dolls covered acres of forest. And here's what made it truly disturbing. Many of the dolls were positioned to face the path, as if watching anyone who passed by. Local authorities investigated but found no explanation. No nearby town, no historical record, no cult activity. Just dolls, hanging in the darkness, their empty eyes staring at nothing. One hiker reported that when they tried to leave, they got lost for hours, even though they'd been following GPS. They kept coming back to the same clearing, where a single doll hung at eye level from a low branch. It hadn't been there before. When they finally found their way out and checked their photos, that last doll appeared in the background of almost every picture they'd taken that day. Always watching, always closer. Number 4. The forest staircases. If you talk to park rangers and forestry workers, especially those who work in national parks, many of them will tell you about the staircases. And they'll tell you the number 1 rule: never, ever climb them. These are staircases found deep in the wilderness, miles from any structure or building. They're not ruins or remnants of old houses. They're just staircases, leading nowhere, standing alone in the middle of the forest. They're made of different materials. Some are wood, some are stone, some are ornate metal. Some are modern, some look ancient. But they all have one thing in common. They're perfectly preserved, with no signs of any building ever having been around them. A park ranger in Oregon shared his experience anonymously online. He said he'd found at least 7 of these staircases during his career. The first time, he climbed one out of curiosity. It was a beautiful wooden staircase, about 15 steps, carpeted in red velvet that showed no signs of weathering. When he reached the top, he felt an overwhelming sense of wrongness. The temperature dropped. The forest went silent. And he swore he heard breathing behind him, even though he was 20 feet in the air with nothing around him. He climbed down and reported it. His supervisor's face went white. "You climbed it?" he asked. "Never climb them. We don't talk about why, but never climb them." That ranger said that after climbing the staircase, he started having nightmares. The same dream every night. He's climbing the staircase again, but this time he can't reach the top. There's always one more step, and something is climbing up behind him, getting closer with each step he takes. He eventually requested a transfer to a different park. Other rangers report similar experiences. Some have seen people at the top of the staircases, people who vanish when you look directly at them. Others have found belongings at the base, shoes, cameras, backpacks, but never the people who left them. The most disturbing report came from a ranger in Washington state. He found a staircase in 2017 and, following protocol, marked it on his map to warn other rangers. When he checked 6 months later, the staircase was gone. But in the exact spot where it had been, the trees were dead in a perfect circle. And scratched into the bark of the largest tree were words: "Thank you for not climbing." Number 3. The Hiker's Journal. In 2016, a couple hiking in the Appalachian Mountains found a waterproof container hidden under some rocks near a stream. Inside was a journal. The journal documented someone's hiking trip through that exact area. The entries started normal: descriptions of the scenery, wildlife sightings, weather conditions. The handwriting was neat and organized. But around the 10th entry, things changed. Day 10. I keep hearing footsteps behind me on the trail. When I turn around, there's no one there. But the footsteps don't stop. They just get closer until I start moving again. Day 11. I saw someone today. At least I think it was someone. They were standing between the trees, about 50 yards away. They didn't move, just stood there watching me. I called out but got no response. When I looked away to check my map, they were gone. Day 12. They're getting closer. I can see them more clearly now. They look wrong. Their proportions aren't right. Arms too long, head tilted at an angle that shouldn't be possible. I tried to take a picture, but my camera won't work when they're around. Battery dies instantly. Day 13. There are more of them now. I counted 6 surrounding my campsite last night. They just stood there at the edge of my firelight, swaying slightly. I didn't sleep. I can't leave. Every trail I try leads me back to the same clearing. The entries became more frantic, the handwriting deteriorating. Day 16. They spoke to me, not with words, in my head. They want me to understand something, but I can't. It hurts to try. My nose won't stop bleeding. Day 19. I understand now. I finally understand. They've been here so much longer than us. This is their place. We're the intruders. They're not trying to hurt me. They're trying to help me see, to become. I'm so tired of fighting it. The last entry was just 2 words, written over and over, filling 3 pages. I see, I see, I see, I see, I see. The couple who found the journal reported it to park authorities. They tried to identify the writer from the handwriting and the description of their gear mentioned in early entries. But here's the thing that terrified investigators. Based on the journal's dates and the hiking route described, the writer would have had to start their hike in 1987. The journal was dated from nearly 30 years before it was found. But the pages weren't yellowed. The ink wasn't faded. And the waterproof container? It was a model that wasn't manufactured until 2010. Search parties found no trace of anyone matching the description in the journal. No missing persons reports. No abandoned campsites. Nothing. But hikers in that area still report the same things. Footsteps that follow them, figures standing between trees, and an overwhelming feeling that something is trying to communicate with them. And some hikers who've been through that area have gone home and found entries in their own journals, entries they don't remember writing, describing experiences they don't remember having. Number 2. The Singing Forest of Black Hills. There's a section of forest in the Black Hills of South Dakota that locals refuse to enter. They call it the Singing Forest, but no one who's heard the singing describes it as beautiful. In 2018, a documentary crew went into this forest to investigate the legends. They brought professional audio equipment, cameras, and a local guide who agreed to take them only to the edge of the restricted area. What they captured on audio has never been fully explained. It starts around dusk. First, you hear what sounds like a single child singing. The melody is old-fashioned, like a lullaby from the 1800s. Then another voice joins. Then another. Soon, it sounds like dozens of children singing in perfect harmony, coming from deep within the trees. The documentary crew tried to find the source. They followed the singing for about a quarter mile into the forest. Their audio equipment picked up the voices clearly. Too clearly. The sound engineer later said the voices sounded like they were coming from right next to the microphones, even though they could hear them coming from deeper in the forest. Then the singing stopped. Abruptly. Completely. In the silence that followed, they heard something else. Breathing. Heavy, labored breathing. And it was coming from above them. When they looked up, they saw nothing but trees and darkness. But their thermal camera told a different story. In the footage, you can see heat signatures in the trees. Dozens of them. Man-sized shapes, sitting on branches, surrounding the crew. The shapes didn't move like animals. They didn't move at all, actually. They just sat there, radiating heat, while the crew slowly backed away. As they retreated, the singing started again. But this time, it wasn't a lullaby. The engineer described it as the sound of children screaming, but in harmony, like they were screaming in tune. The crew ran. When they reviewed their footage later, they found something that made them abandon the entire documentary. In the background of every shot, barely visible in the trees, you can see faces. Children's faces. But wrong. Too pale. Eyes too large. Mouths open impossibly wide. And in the thermal footage, as the crew runs away, you can see the heat signatures drop from the trees and follow. They move fast. Inhumanly fast. The documentary was never released. The footage was locked away, but the audio engineer kept a copy of the sound files. He shared them online once, in a forum for paranormal investigators. People who listened to the full audio file reported the same thing. Days later, they could still hear the singing. Faint, like it was coming from another room. Some reported hearing it in their sleep. Others said they heard it when they were alone in quiet places. One listener claimed they went hiking after hearing the audio and found themselves drawn to a specific area of woods near their home. They said they felt compelled to start singing along with a melody they didn't remember learning. They said the woods sang back. Number 1. The trail camera photographs. This is the most disturbing entry on our list because it's still happening. Trail cameras are common in forests. Hunters and wildlife researchers use them to monitor animal populations. The cameras are motion-activated and can capture images day or night. But starting around 2015, trail cameras across North America, Europe, and Asia began capturing something else. Something that researchers are still trying to explain. The photographs show a figure. Different cameras, different forests, different continents, but always the same figure. It's humanoid, but not human. Tall, maybe 7 or 8 feet. Thin, with limbs that seem too long for its body. It's always photographed at night, and it's always looking directly at the camera. Not walking past the camera, not moving through the frame, standing perfectly still, facing the camera, as if it knows it's being photographed. The most unsettling part? In each photograph, it's closer than in the last one. A researcher in Oregon set up a trail camera in 2017. The first photo showed the figure approximately 100 yards away, barely visible between trees. The second photo, taken an hour later, showed it at about 50 yards. Third photo, 25 yards. By the fourth photo, it was standing directly in front of the camera. The image shows its torso filling the entire frame. You can't see its head. It's too tall. But you can see its hands. They're pressed against the camera lens, fingers splayed. Each finger has too many joints. The camera stopped working after that photo. When the researcher went to retrieve the camera 2 weeks later, he found it gone. In its place was a perfect circle of dead vegetation, about 10 feet in diameter. And in the center of the circle, facing where the camera had been, was a single handprint pressed into the soil. The handprint was 6 inches longer than a human hand should be. Similar incidents have been reported in dozens of locations. The photographs are consistent enough that some researchers believe it's the same entity. But how could one thing appear in forests thousands of miles apart? Some theorize there are multiple entities. Others suggest something far more disturbing, that it can move between locations in ways we don't understand, that it's not bound by the same physical laws we are. The most recent photograph was taken 3 months ago in Sweden. It shows the figure, as always, facing the camera. But this time, there's something new in the image. Behind the figure, barely visible in the infrared light, are others, dozens of them, all facing the camera, all perfectly still. The caption the researcher added when he shared the photo online was simple: "They're gathering." Since that photograph, multiple trail cameras in the same forest have gone missing. Hikers report feeling watched. Several people have disappeared in the area, with search parties finding no trace. And just last week, a camera in Washington state, over 5,000 miles away, captured an image that went viral before being mysteriously scrubbed from the internet. It showed the figure, right at the camera. But this time, you could see its face. People who saw the image before it was deleted described the same thing. It wasn't the face that terrified them. It was the expression, because the thing was smiling. And behind it, filling the entire background of the photograph, were hundreds of others. All smiling, all facing the camera, all waiting. These are 5 of the most disturbing things ever found in the woods. Real discoveries, real photographs, real terror. So the next time you plan a peaceful hike, remember, the woods are older than us, deeper than we know, and some things that live there have been waiting much, much longer than we've been walking upright. Stay out of the woods after dark. Don't climb the staircases. And if you hear children singing where no children should be, run. Subscribe for more cases. And remember, never go into the woods alone.